The interaction began in South Africa at the Soweto town hall, with simultaneous broadcasts with Uganda, Kenya and Nigeria. The youth engaged President Obama on issues which included African trade, democracy and terrorism. The American president commended some African countries for upholding democracy. However, he says others are yet to achieve this objective.
Some countries are doing great work when it comes to accountability and democracy and an active civil society and a free press and freedom of assembly. And some countries are not doing as well. But what's exciting right now is you're starting to see more and more a norm, a standard take hold in Africa. And young people, I think especially, have high expectations about how government should function, and it should function for the public good, not for the benefit of just a few.
The youth representative from Uganda asked about trade between the United States and Africa.
Mr. President, as young Ugandan leaders, we are looking to the world for equal business partners and commitments, and not necessarily aid. We are not looking for donors. And yet, Mr. President, the policy you've just described right now seems to emphasize help coming in from the US, but emphasizing offering jobs and employment within the countries that they come into. As young leaders, Mr. President, we want to do the businesses at home and be the ones to own our home markets. So how do you, Mr. President, plan on assisting us in reframing the US policy to achieve this vision?
So one of the things that we're going to be very interested in is working with the African Union as well as various regional organizations to find ways that we can start linking up markets inside of Africa. Because particularly for new businesses, if you're starting a business here in South Africa, then the best chance you have initially for export might be closer to home, one of the surrounding countries. If Uganda, if you have a business that you want to get started, and initially you've gotten your product popular inside of Uganda, the next step, before you think about selling to the United States, you might say to yourself, let me start selling some in Kenya, or let me start selling in Tanzania, or Rwanda. And so part of what we have to do is to find additional ways in which Africans can also trade with each other.
On terrorism in Africa, President Obama refuted claims that the US is seeking military inclusion in other countries.
This idea somehow that, we want to get more involved militarily around the world is simply not true. First of all, it costs a lot of money. And the United States, just like every country around the world, has to think about its budget. And where we intervene, oftentimes it's not very effective, because unless you've got a local population that is standing up against terrorism, we end up being viewed as interlopers and intruders. So in the Africa context, what we want to do is to build African capacity. We want the African Union and other regional organizations to build up the capacity to send in peacekeepers, to be able to nip terrorist cells that may be forming before they start and gain strength.
Deviating from the theme, the Kenyans raised the issue of what has been described in some quarters as an apparent snub by Obama of the country. They alluded to widespread speculations on his reasons for skipping the country of his late father in his latest African tour.
Part of the reason that I wasn't able to visit Kenya this time is I've been to Kenya multiple times, and there hadn't been a sustained visit by me in West Africa. And then South Africa, given the importance of the work that we're doing together. Tanzania is a country I hadn't visited before, so I was trying to spread the wealth a little bit in terms of my visit.
Africa. Mr. President,
One of them is now going to ask you a question on behalf
NTV
of
Uganda hosted the local chapter
United
led by
States.
our very own Nancy Kachungira.
The biggest challenge we have
Obama is in
environmentally,
South Africa on the
and
second
it is
leg
an
of his
international
African tour
challenge
after
that we
Senegal.
cannot solve alone.
Tomorrow, President Obama will visit the historic Robben Island with his family, where the former South African President Nelson Mandela was jailed for 27 years. President Obama will head to Tanzania on Monday.
So thank you very much for the question, Uganda. Appreciate it.
Gertrude Tumusime Witkwade, NTV.